Go. All right. And wait, hang on a sec. There we go. My bad, guys. Sorry, weird start there. That was quick. Welcome to the post show. That was weird. I messed up on the Zoom there really quick. My apologies there. Welcome to the Super Bowl post show, the day after the Super Bowl. We are recording this on a Monday, Monday at 8:05 p.m. Pacific. I'm joined as always by Shane and Brandon. How are you guys doing the day after the Super Bowl?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Good, Brandon. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Just wondering once again how Tom Brady continuously does it and just pisses off everyone.
Why do you think he continuously does it, Brandon? Because as we talked about before the show, there's a lot more parity in the league than it's ever been. And every year Brady's been in the Super Bowl, since 2002, the parity's gotten so much better, and he still finds a way to get another ring.
I was thinking about this last night, and I think it's a combination of two things, especially this year. One, I think everybody underestimated Tom Brady. I think everybody at this point is saying, oh, Tom Brady's going to retire. Tom Brady's bad. Tom Brady's done. He's washed up. He's over. No. I'm the biggest Tom Brady hater in the world, and even I have to say, Tom Brady will never be washed up until he, mangles his arm in, a playing accident and, breaks every bone. Man. Unless that happens, this man, who knows how many Super Bowls he can win. And it's the thing is, he's not the most athletic person. He's not the quickest. He's not the best at throwing the ball deep. But I think the thing is, he has the best football mind on the field. He knows what to do. He knows how to play the game. The other part is, he definitely paid to win this season. He convinced the team, hey, pull out your checkbooks and buy up all these quality talent who, to be fair, nobody else really wanted. Antonio Brown, LaShawn McCoy, Leonard Fournette, list goes on.
I think that's the biggest thing here too. I wonder what the future of that's going to look like. How we're talking about in the NBA, the player empowerment movement. Now, obviously, I wouldn't say buy to win is kind of the thing, but it's more so just saying, hey, get my guys in town. Do you think this is something we'll see more from quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers or I don't know, even with Tom Brady next year, probably will be the same team. We'll see what happens with the cap situation, but even Russell Wilson. They talked about this on PFT today. Do you think this is something that these quarterbacks with prestige, not necessarily rookies, but quarterbacks with, standing in the NFL are going to start doing, get my guys in town?
I do think so. I think, unfortunately, you'll see it a little bit. I think the Buccaneers were in a very specific slot this year where they had a lot of young guys, a lot of talent left over from previous years.
Yeah, the Winston era.
But they still had a large gap of money left over that they could use to spend on the big names. I don't think the way that the salary cap works in the NFL will allow for it to become like the NBA, where it's literally jumping from team left and right, just all up, 1 year you're here, 1 year you're here, 1 year you're here, just jumping around.
No, but what I'm asking is there's something happening in the NFL, which I call the quarterback empowerment movement. Right. Brady asking for his guys, Deshaun Watson asking to leave Houston. There is this sense of player empowerment, but more from the quarterbacks.
I think
the quarterbacks do it, it's going to shift to other positions.
I could see it happening, but the problem is you have to have the cap space.
And cap is going down anyway to 180
right.
million.
So I don't see it happening a ton. I could see it happening in somewhere like Green Bay where this offseason. I could see it very easily happening. I could see Aaron Rodgers saying, hey, go out and get me this one wide receiver or get me this piece or whatever. I mean, to an extent, it happened in Seattle with, I mean, the idea of the quarterback empowerment movement, you saw it happening with Russell Wilson and how he was saying, I need to have a say in who becomes offensive coordinator.
Well, I think that's always been there, but I'm talking about getting players there. The quarterback always has sway with the coaches
man.
too.
I just don't think I do not think it's going to happen on a large scale. And the reason I don't think it's going to happen on a large scale is because, as I said, the cap situation is so different. It's not feasible to have just players being dropped, like large numbers of players being added to a team, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh, this team is Super Bowl bound. It's not feasible.
This is not something that you think will be a consistent thing in the NFL, basically.
No, and I hope not, and I don't want to see it become a consistent thing.
Yeah. Shane, what are your thoughts on the QB empowerment movement?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't like the idea of, a quarterback being forced to stay someplace where they're not happy or they're not feeling like they can grow to their fullest potential. Like, Deshaun Watson, for instance, right? Especially when all your teammates are saying, yeah, go, go pursue something elsewhere. But then you have situations like this where you get a guy like Brady who goes to Tampa and then he says, oh yeah, and I'm going to bring, Gronk with me and Antonio Brown and Leonard Fournette. He comes along. He's like, oh, I want to get in on that too, And to me, instead of Tampa feeling like they really earned that, it feels like a team that just sort of like put all their chips in and bought their way to get this, if that makes sense.
Well, I will say that also it is interesting how front offices even try to do something similar with this with the Rams, right? They're sort of just putting all their chips in all these guys. And do you think it does have something to do with prestige, though? Because ultimately, this is Brady on his last legs trying to get a title. And, like, why do you think this is, like, this whole thing with Brady of, oh, I want to play with Brady? Des Bryant said last night, like, man, I wish I played with him. Why do you think so many players sort of wish they play with him and so many players that play with him love playing with him?
Well, I would imagine it has to do with ring chasing because,
right.
I mean, he acts like this nice guy, but I don't think he is because half the time when I see him on the sidelines, he's like yelling at his teammates and cussing them out. I mean, if I played with him, I would think the guy's a dick. I'd be like,
well,
screw you.
All I'll say is that's sort of the competitive nature of Brady, right?
Yeah, but
we've seen that his whole career.
I'll say this: like,
why would that be fun to be around?
Right, you can be competitive. You can be competitive and like not be a dick. Like there's plenty of competitive guys out there who, I mean, I'll just say one. I mean, Russell Wilson, he's super competitive and he does not come across as a dick at all.
I think with Brady, there's so much with him as a player. And there's a reason why he sort of acts the way he acts on the sideline. Look, it's not the most preferable image in the world, but I think there is a reason for that. He demands a lot out of his players. It is partially Belichick too.
Yeah,
that was his attitude in New England, right? There is sort of a thing where throughout his NFL career, that's sort of what he's been thought.
Yeah,
and it is a unique thing where that was it in New England. It was win or bust. It was this attitude of like, it was this sort of aggressive, do your job attitude. And Brady's had that his whole career because he's been in New England. Now, obviously not all of that is Belichick. And again, it can come across as negative, but there is a reason for it. It's kind of how he grew to be the quarterback he is today,
Yeah. Like I was watching the ESPN pregame show, and Teddy Bruschi was on there, and he said, talking about Stafford, he said that Stafford wouldn't have survived Belichick's way of doing things. Like,
It's so different.
Brady was expected to like had such a high level of expectations on him, and like, okay, fine, like, sure, let's just say that that's his whole
I'm
thing.
not saying that's everything,
let's
right?
Also
because
say,
so much
let's
with
also
legacy.
say that he has a giant chip on his shoulder because he was picked like sixth round, whatever. Nobody thought he was going to be anything. The only reason he was given a chance was because of a random fluke injury, whatever.
Which happened to guys like Dak too, and it's kind of been a thing.
Right. Like, okay, cool. But like, at this point in his career, he has 7 rings.
Well, 6 before this one.
Right? Okay, he had 6 rings before this. Fucking retire. You have no reason to still be playing the game of football. You are the most decorated player to ever play the game. You are the goatiest goat to ever goat in football. You have no reason.
Sports.
No, he's not in all sports, Robert. That is not a conversation.
I'm saying
there is no maybe here, Robert. There is no maybe at all. He is not even in the conversation of all sports goats.
He has to be. He beat Michael Jordan already. That's for sure.
Not in the slightest. No.
Getting 7 is 7 over 6.
Here's my thing.
Not in the slightest, Robert. It is so much easier. Robert, it's so much easier to get a Super Bowl ring than it is to get an NBA ring.
I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one. That's a fair point.
You have to go through 4 different rounds in the playoffs.
And it's like 160 games basically. So that's a fair point.
And most of the games and most of the series he ended up in, I believe, went 6 or 7 games. They weren't just like wipeouts.
No, so, I agree. No, that is a fair point. I think the main point that I'm trying to make is he deserves to be in that discussion, as does Serena Williams, as does Wayne Gretzky. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, he has to be, because he's at that point where he's at that Mount Rushmore of the sport, and there's so many.
I think he's in like the top. I would put him in like the top 5 of all time players. But my thing with him is, I've said this before, and you know what? Come for me, people listening to this, about if you don't agree with me on this. But like, here's my thing: he is a great player on the field, but my God, he is an asshole as a person. Like, I have no respect for Tom Brady when it comes to him personally. Like, he is a great football player, right? But I cannot think of many players who didn't like physically abuse their wife or like hurt their children or something that I have less respect for as a human being off the field.
Let me ask you this question.
He's just the worst.
Let me ask you this question too with this. I mean, it's somewhat apples and oranges, but let's go back to sort of his attitude on the field. Remember on The Last Dance, right? And we talked about Michael Jordan and how he was expecting so much from his teammates, And I think that's sort of an important point to make, is those distinction between those two athletes in how they act. You kind of, I'm talking about sort of like on the field, right? Going back to that point, that's just part of who they are. That's the identity of these legends of these games. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm positive, just as you're sort of saying with Brady, it's sort of assholish, but it's the same with Michael Jordan. We saw that in The Last Dance, and we're going to see that in the Brady documentary next year too. Like, or I think that documentary is coming out this year on ESPN.
Yeah, in the fall.
In the fall, like, we're going to see that same thing. I think there's a level of attitude just from him as a football player and how he acts on the field from what we've seen him on the field.
I would just say
comment in that, but do you see the comparison? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
I mean, I do, but I would just say here's my thing, right? And his off the field stuff has nothing to do with his competitive fire, right?
And we're not. We don't need to even. I'm worried about like the football piece of it.
And I've talked about this with Shane, but here's the thing, Robert. I believe if we're going to talk about Tom Brady as like all around like player. I believe you have to look at who he is on the field and off the field.
Well, then you could say it for Michael Jordan with gambling, right?
Well, okay,
So it's
yeah.
the same
But
discussion.
no, it's not, Robert, because Tom Brady cheated. He cheated majorly, and it's something
that's true too.
It's something that I believe in. People just disappear into the ethos of sports, like
But
history.
I will also say that is more him on the field too,
it's not,
because that's the whole discussion, right? The whole discussion. Well, I mean, part of that with MJ is like the gambling stuff. That's different with the cheating stuff. But the cheating stuff is part of his legacy. I don't think that's going to be ignored. But as a football player, that's part of his legacy. We're not going to take that away from him.
And also, and this is the last thing I'll say, and I'll let Shane talk, because I've just we've just going off.
We're going. No, it's fine. It's a fair conversation.
Right. I'll say this. Tom Brady off the field is this larger than life person, right? And he has this chance as a superstar, megastar, to put the right foot forward on events happening in the world. Mm-hmm. And he continuously chooses to make the wrong stances on things. He openly and yes, maybe my bias is coming out here, but he openly came out as supporting Donald Trump. And there's nothing wrong with having a political opinion for someone who I think differently of. However, he is being very at times he has been very open about supporting the same bad negative opinions that Donald Trump has had. Mm-hmm. He's also been very open about basically poo-pooing coronavirus. I mean, think about it. Last night, not once did I see that man with a mask on.
I will say specifically for that game, you don't have to, because you're actually playing the game.
No, Robert.
You don't necessarily have to.
I've heard this argument. Before. I've heard this argument from many people on the internet last night. Okay, yes, you don't have to wear it because you're in a bubble.
It's required. I'm not saying it's bad, because it is required, but you can't just single out Tom Brady because
I am singling him out, Tom Brady, because Tom Brady is the superstar there. He is the superstar. Was Mahomes wearing a mask? Yes, because he gets it. He gets it. And Tom Brady was not wearing a mask. He never wears a mask. He's actively being against it. His own parents have tried to tell him how important it is to be how important it is to talk about it. His kids were wearing masks last night. He wasn't wearing a mask. And here's the issue here. I get it. You're with your team. You're in an environment, whatever.
But this is something you've commented on before. Wait, hang on. This is something you've commented on before.
Just 1 second.
Yeah.
And I'll be done. It's not about wearing the mask. It's about the visual. It's about the fact that you are Tom Brady.
The reputation
Exactly. Yeah. You're someone that so many people look at and go, oh, I guarantee you if he had been wearing a mask, there would have been so many people who would have seen him wearing a mask and go, oh, he's wearing a mask? I should wear a mask. And there would also be people who would go, he's wearing a mask? That's ridiculous. But the point is, it was a chance that honestly, and I can tell you this, hand to God, if I had seen Tom Brady wearing a mask, that would have changed a lot of how I thought of him. I would probably been like, you know what? Respect. I respect that.
It's unfortunate that the way in which we sort of view it is based on that whole thing. But I see what you're saying though, because I think it is sort of a valid argument. But we've had this conversation before about COVID and that continuity thing from the whole league. And there has been issues, and we'll get to that for some of the other leagues as well. I think it's fair to bring up, but also I look at, of course, I think more importantly for our purposes, we're looking at some of the on the field stuff, and obviously with the cheating and all that stuff as well, that it will be part of his legacy as well. But I think it is sort of a whole thing. But Shane, what is your sort of overall thoughts on this discussion?
Okay.
It's a lot.
I have a lot of many thoughts, because this is a very it's very clear this is quite a significant event in American sports or even international sports. Um, just is. I mean, we've, as you guys were saying, we've never had somebody in the four major American sports with kind of the, I guess like the celebrity influence that he has, who has so many rings. And anyways, here's what I'll say about it. I mean, as you guys know, I'm not a fan of the guy.
Yeah.
I think he's
I'm on the opposite side of you guys with that. I have been for a long time, but still.
I know you like him, and that's fine.
Him as a football player, right? Him as a player, I just love
Right.
watching him play.
But I don't like this whole argument now that because he has a seventh ring, that automatically means he's the best. Because football is a team sport, and yes, I get that. The quarterback is more important and has more impact on the team in football than anybody else. I get that. But when you are in a team sport, I don't think it's right to look at how many wins somebody has and then ultimately judge judge how good they are just based off of that. Like if you because if you look at him just as an individual, he is one of the slowest quarterbacks to ever play the game. His arm is, it's not bad, but it's not like it's nothing special, really, if we're being honest. His only the really the only thing that makes him special is his knowledge of the game and his decision making and all that.
Which I know is something you appreciate in a quarterback, though, ultimately. Because, I mean,
No,
that gives you longevity in the league.
no, it is, but that's why and maybe he is the greatest of all time, but I just have an issue with saying that he automatically is because he has more rings than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Because in reality, he's like the least athletic person to ever even play the sport.
Well, Shane, and this is something that I also sort of differentiate on. There's the GOAT conversation in the NFL is over and done with. I think regardless of anything, it's over, and it has been over for a long time. But there has been that argument of, is he the greatest athlete of all time? And I know people view an athlete in so many different ways, right? But for me, when I look at an athlete, it's who you are as a player. What are your abilities? And I think that's sort of what you're attesting to, right? So there's a difference between what the GOAT conversation says versus the athletic conversation. And the athletic conversation is where I agree with you, where I don't think he's there. I don't think he's necessarily a top 5, even top 10 athlete just because of his pure skill set as a player. Does that make sense? They're really two separate conversations.
Yes, but I mean, even then, like I still have a hard time saying that he's the best football player ever. I I mean, just looking at his numbers, and I'm probably gonna get hate for this. I don't care. It's my opinion.
I mean, the numbers are good too historically. I mean, for how
I
long he's been
know,
in the league.
um, but I mean, if we're looking at it from that perspective, right? You got Drew Brees, who is just about as athletic as he is, and Drew Brees has better passing numbers than Brady ever has more yards, higher completion percentage. He would probably have more touchdowns if he was in the league as long as him. So, and not to mention, Drew was on a crappy team for about half that time. I don't know. I just don't. Now that he has more rings than anybody else, like you said, the conversation is over. Even if I don't think, even if I don't agree, I mean, there's nothing I can say now that'll change people's minds.
Yeah.
Because I mean, ultimately, this Super Bowl, I don't feel like it was won by him. I'll just say that.
I mean, no, and I think I agree with you because we'll get to the defense, and I think as we talked about with Peyton, same thing. With Peyton, obviously a bit different because Brady had a better, overall, like he was just a better quarterback than Peyton was at that time. But yeah, that defense I think really won this game ultimately. But we'll get to that in a few. It's surprising on Football Reference they don't put the 100 all-time team in there. But yeah.
So I don't know. I mean,
I love how there's rumors on here too. What the heck?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, the conversation's over, but I just don't like that people base it entirely off of how many wins he has when there's so much more to it than that, especially in a team sport.
Well,
You
I
know what
mean, do you also understand that you kind of have to have, no, obviously with Michael it's different, but let's just go from the baseline of the Michael Jordan argument. The baseline of the Michael Jordan argument is 6 for 6. So
Yeah.
the baseline of the Brady argument is 7 of 10.
Yeah, and
so you don't agree with the
either.
baseline of the argument.
No. I think it's ridiculous because it's a team sport. You're one guy on a team, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, of course they were obviously very important and very vital in getting that win or wins multiple. But they weren't everything. I mean, look at the Bulls. You had Scottie Pippen, who was a great supporter. Or, I mean, even just look at yesterday, right? I mean, Brady himself didn't really even have that amazing of a game. I mean, he was fine, but it wasn't like, the best we'd ever seen or anything. He had a great running game, Fournette, and that defense completely shut down the Chiefs. That was what won the game to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it doesn't matter what sport it is. I think, if it's an individual sport, okay, like swimming,
tennis with Serena Williams is a
right,
great example.
You want to look at the individuals' wins because it was them themselves. That's a fair argument, I think.
But they also have coaches and stuff too. They still have a supporting team, but they're the one on the field or
no, I know, but they're the one person playing.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I just don't. And again, that's the argument that he has the most rings, so therefore he's the best. And I'm never going to be able to.
No, I think that but I
just don't agree with it. I just think it's a dumb premise for a team sport.
Brandon, do you have do you kind of have the same thing? Because I understand where Shane's coming from in terms of the baseline argument. So the baseline argument for Michael Jordan is 6 for 6. The baseline argument for Brady is 7 of 10, basically. Do you agree with Shane's kind of doesn't really enjoy that sort of baseline argument for those two players?
I mean, I agree with some of what Shane's saying. Like, yeah,
I'm in the middle and not me.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I like it's a team sport. I think there can be like a GOAT. I think there's always going to be like that player that dominated. Like, hockey's a team sport, but everybody knows Wayne Gretzky was the greatest player to ever play hockey.
How many rings did he win again? What was his?
I don't know.
Ring set.
But like it's interesting because in that case, it's not really about rings for me. It's about just he has every single scoring title and assists and like he is the just stats wise, which to me is like way more important than like cups in terms of like something like hockey or basketball. Like stats wise, just like showcases it. Whereas like for some reason, like I don't think I'm pretty certain Brady is not the leader in stats for like NFL players.
Not, no, I don't think he leads in, I believe, a good
He
portion
leads in
of
some of them.
categories.
He
But
leads in
it's-
touchdowns. That's it.
But it's really
Is it just
interesting because
touchdowns?
Yep.
right, yeah, because and it's really interesting where you look at that and it's like every other player who's considered a GOAT in their sport leads everything basically in stats.
Right. So
but
see,
Tom Brady is not amazing in stats. Like he it's just that he's managed to win all these rings, and that's the thing that's kind of gotten me over the years. It made me be like, how is he really the GOAT if he doesn't lead in all the stats?
So
Well,
here's my thing too, Shane, really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
LeBron James, when his career is done, is going to be Jordan in every category. So then where's the argument for LeBron then? See, that's where the disconnect is for me with this argument. That I know it's easy to say the rings, and I know it's harder to say the stats. But if you just say the stats, then you're going to have to say LeBron James when his career is over. You're going to have to.
I mean, no, I don't have to because LeBron James, because here's the thing. You can have stats, right? Like, what the rough thing is, like, you can be great in stats and be amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, it's the reason why I believe that Brady and Jordan, if I had to sit down and say who's the closest to each other and how I look at it, is Brady and Jordan are the closest to each other in that sort of idea because when it came down to it, at the end of the day, when they got to the finals, they get it done.
Right, but even Brady lost 3.
Right, and so when you're thinking about players who, when it comes time to get it done, and they don't stutter, they don't think about it, they don't falter. Jordan is the guy who got it done every time he made it to the finals. Now he definitely, as we've talked about, he has lots of experience in the playoffs, not winning, but when he made it to the finals, he always won. So it is, and it's a good conversation you're bringing up, Robert, because I kind of don't love the idea. I don't love the GOAT conversation to begin with, because
this is why we don't love it. This is why we don't love the conversation.
I've said many times that each generation brings someone new who enters the conversation, who, as their career goes on, you have someone go, oh, they're the GOAT. And I think I've said it, or they're possibly going to be a new GOAT. And I think I've brought up with basketball, like, you had guys like Kareem and Wilt and like, of course, MJ, LeBron. I mean, hell, Kobe. Hell, you already have guys coming up now in this recent generation that people could possibly say in the future are going to be the GOAT, like Giannis or like
or Mahomes down the road, maybe.
Right. Mahomes, Curry, like
Luka. I don't know.
Rogers, possibly, maybe. Yeah. But like, I think the thing that I want to just leave this conversation on is, it's easy to get caught up in the like heat of arguing for who you think is the best.
That's the fun of it too. Like, this argument is fun at the end of the day.
But at the end of the day, all these players who we argue about, who are so good, that's what they are. They are all amazing players who we get the opportunity to watch them showcase their abilities day in and day out. And like, we're just basically here talking about them. And they're actually out there putting on amazing feats of athleticism, some more than others.
Well, there's 2 separate things that I want to point out. One is the difference between the GOAT conversation versus the athlete conversation. They are 2 separate conversations. They just are. Because in athlete conversation is the pure athlete, the individual. Goes back to Shane's thing. The individual argument is more reserved for the athlete in some ways. The idea of who's the greatest athlete of all time. And that's why I don't think Brady's high on that list. I think he's on that list at some level, but he's not fully on that list. Versus what is the actual GOAT conversation, where we come to guys like Gretzky, like Jordan, and Serena, I think, fits in both those conversations. That's why she's so unique. I'm sure some others for tennis as well, but more specifically as well, Brady in football as well, I should say. But there's that conversation. And then there's the conversation of how do we pick and choose it? Because, okay, I could say, like for me, I could say Brady's the GOAT because of 6 or because of the 7 of 10, but then I can say LeBron because of the statistics. But it's not a fair argument because I'm going 100% in both ways. So you can't really have it both ways, right? So that's part. I think ultimately that's part of why the conversation, us even having this conversation as much as we're having it, but also it's part of why the conversation's a little bit bogus and why it is annoying that. And it's good that we've had this conversation now and not like all the time, like most shows do, because most shows honestly do have this conversation way too often. But that's why the conversation is somewhat overblown because there's no way to convince the other person. Plus, it depends where you stand on each different sport has in some ways different criteria from different people. It's an impossible conversation.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's a great
me,
conversation. It's
I mean,
a fun
yeah,
conversation,
I get,
but it's not the best.
I get tired of having the conversation though because it just ends up going in circles.
Right.
So.
Exactly. And I think that's what we're sort of pointing out here ultimately.
Yeah.
Back to the Super Bowl really quick. Let me sort of give you guys my synopsis of this game really quick and the couple things that I thought of as I was watching it and after. So first things first, yeah, Shane, you're right. That Bucs defense, who I said I thought they could be a top 10 defense in the preseason. I think they showed it in the postseason at least. Mahomes was running for his life. Absolutely running for his life tonight or on last night. And it was brutal. I mean, still, he made some incredible throws, but he was running for his life. That offensive line was terrible, and we didn't give the fact that, you know, Eric Fisher was out, their center was out. We didn't talk about that enough leading up to the game, and that was a huge reason why they lost. I think the bigger question I have for both of you is, what is the future of the Chiefs now? Well, the Bucs, we kind of have an idea of what they'll be. We'll see what they do in free agency, but the Chiefs in particular, I know you both have talked about this idea of, oh yeah, the cap is going to be brutal, which it is, but they're going to have to find a reserve offensive line that was way better than that because that was ugly. And it was finally the one game where we said, oh yeah, it can't all be Mahomes because if it is all Mahomes, they're going to lose. That defense was bad. That offensive line was bad. Shane, you're kind of shaking your head in agreement. What do you think is the future of the Chiefs? Because they're not in a rebuild or a retool, but I think they're in a reevaluation today. I think they're going back to the drawing board a little bit.
I think they got to be. I think, you know, because it's the thing about it is, I mean, okay. First of all, giant elephant in the room. It doesn't help that they were missing 2 of their offensive linemen. I mean, you know, Eric Fisher obviously is key to that offensive line. But regardless, I don't feel like that it shouldn't have been as bad as it was. You know, even though this front 7 from Tampa was pretty good all year and we knew that they would be good, I saw a next gen stat that he was pressured most of any quarterback in any Super Bowl ever.
Yes, this was from ESPN Stats and Info. He was pressured, I believe, what was it, 29 times? Correct?
That's insane.
I think it was more than that, I think.
It might have been more. I'll look. ESPN Stats and Info. Patrick Mahomes was pressured more than any QB in Super Bowl history, 29, passing Jim Kelly with the record of 25, and Tom Brady faced the fewest pressures with 4.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing about Kansas City is, yeah, like you said, the Mahomes deal is it's taking up a lot of cap space, especially now that the cap is going down a bit. I don't imagine they'll be able to keep all their offensive line because offensive linemen are expensive.
As they
Especially
should be with the values.
especially tackles. And so if that's any sign of what we saw last night, that concerns me a bit. Now, of course, they're not going to be going up against a front seven like Tampa's in most games. But still, it should not be that bad. And, you know, they do still have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce locked up for the next couple of years. But outside of them,
And Chris Jones on the defensive end, but outside of that.
yeah. Well, I'm looking at offense here. Just on offense, I mean, they don't. Is there really anybody on that team, like receiving wise, that really impresses you that much?
No.
Mecole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson. They're going to be on the team for a while.
Hardman's
I'm sure Mecole's
alright,
going to
but-
get to a bigger role if
I mean, I'd like to rewind back to the beginning of the season.
When you basically said
And
what I'm
I
saying now.
Basically laid out what was going to happen. I mean, I've had a feeling this whole year that this team is heading for a reality check. Like, everybody hypes them, everybody loves them, but the fact is this, right? They shouldn't have won the Super Bowl last year because they were down big to begin with, and the 49ers let them back in.
As was the case throughout that playoff run, too, that division round game against Houston.
Mahomes had a shitty Super Bowl last year as well. This is not a deep team, and it's never been a deep team. It's a team with flashy players, not built well. And you want to know who they remind me a lot of that I just popped in my brain now? A team that I complain about a lot when we do drafts. They remind me of the Dallas Cowboys.
Remind you of the Cowboys. It's kind of fair. It's kind of
because
fair.
they are, and it's not.
Version of them.
They're a better
Yes.
version of the Cowboys. Like, honestly, I would say the Cowboys have a better defense.
They did this. Well, not they. I don't know. They've had better
in the
defenses.
past. They've had better defenses.
This year, yeah, I don't know.
And
but
here's what the Chiefs make me think. I think the Chiefs are going to be a team ripe for the picking for teams wanting medium level players easy to slot in to their team.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot. I think we're going to see there's going to be a lot of players that kind of come in and just go bloop, 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 and just pick off some like pretty significant players. Because the fact is, I believe Mahomes' contract kicks in next year.
Is it next year or the year after that?
I think it's next year. I think this was his fifth year.
It was the fifth-year option year
this year. And if it kicks in next year, boy.
it would be next year.
It would be next year. So next year's the fifth-year option year.
Okay,
so,
well,
yeah.
It doesn't help them because they're going to be screwed too, either way, because it's a small cap this year, and it's going to be a smaller cap next year.
It's not going to boom for a while.
It's not going to
boom. Cap
boom.
Goes down.
I mean,
it doesn't go up for a good.
They're pulling. If anything, the league is pulling money from other caps in the future to put into next season's cap.
That is also true. So it's going to be bad. Yeah.
So you have to think about the fact, and you have to think about the fact that teams that are on the downwards, that are at the bottom right now, we're going to see teams at the bottom end up at the top, and the teams at the top end up at the bottom.
In some ways, so it depends.
I kind of feel like I wonder if we're gonna see a situation that happened with the Seahawks when we got back to the Super Bowl, we lost, and then we had a bunch of players leave.
Yeah, so it's next year at 27 is the fifth-year option year. Here's the contract.
As I said, like, they put big money into 4 players. That's rough, because you have to wonder how quick are they about to turn around and say, hey, Mahomes, how do you feel about restructuring your contract?
Do you think we talked about this yesterday after the Super Bowl when we were just hanging out. Do you think he stays when we're just hanging out
No.
on video calls as we do to prepare for the show and stuff? Do you think he stays the full 10 years or what is it, 12 of this contract?
He does maybe 6, I think.
Shane, do you think he stays the full 10 years or 12 in this case?
Give me a minute. Come back to me.
Because
Yeah.
historically speaking, the answer is no.
Yeah.
Guys get 10-year deals and they don't stay the whole year. They don't stay the whole contract.
Because here's the problem. I think the Chiefs are going to end up in a situation like the Seahawks, where they're not going to have the money for offensive linemen, and their line is going to break down. He's going to end up in a situation like Russell. He's going to end up getting sacked a lot because he's not getting younger, and he's not going to be able to run forever and make the plays he is. And if you remember, the Seahawks, they had a good O-line in 2013 when we won the Super Bowl.
Right, yes.
They had a pretty good O-line in 2014.
It wasn't amazing, but I think it finished, 15th?
Right.
It did its job.
It did its job. Like, it wasn't just a revolving door in 2013 and 2014, and then 2015.
Like the Chiefs this year, because that's what it was this year.
The moment we got rid of what's his name? The moment we traded for Graham in 2015.
Yeah.
Max Unger.
That was a moment I went, you know what? We just fucked up here. Excuse my language. Because
okay.
Here's the thing. I remember in my gut going, why would you get rid of the key piece of the O-line for an angsty tight end who thinks he's a wide receiver?
I mean, he was at that time, we remember, but he kind of dipped when he got to Seattle, which because he didn't fit the system.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things where I feel like, to an extent, I feel like and I read an article in Sports Illustrated the other day that said it's easy to get to the Super Bowl. It's hard to get back.
Yes. Yep. You get back twice and then.
Yeah.
it's hard.
And it's hard to get back, because everybody's coming for you. I don't think either of these teams are going to make it back next year. I think it's going to be a completely new swath of teams.
No. Are you? My apologies, Brandon. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Okay. So Shane, I'll go to you with this as well. And by the way, 32 years old. The cap hit is literally $60 million.
Yeah.
We talked about this in the offseason. Shane, I'll go to you with this. We've had, with Mahomes, everyone has been, including myself and many others, have talked about where could he reach Brady with, at that time 6, now 7. Do you believe, as I do, that the parity in the league, particularly with Mahomes, is going to get the parity in the league has already been amazing throughout Brady's career, but it's going to get even worse for Mahomes moving forward because the parity is going to get that much better. The balance around the league is going to continue to get better, especially with the cap going down. Do you think that argument of he's close to Brady, he'll get to 6 is kind of ridiculous because the parity is going to be better? Because that's how I feel. I think that the parity is going to be better, so it's going to be even harder for him, not only with the cap issues. Do you agree with that?
I think so, because honestly, I think it'd be hard for him to even win 3 or 4, really. Just based off of everything we've talked about here. And, I gave it thought, and I do think that he will leave, because either
How long do you think it will be? How long do you think it will be?
5-6 years from now, probably.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
Because next year, they'll still be good next year, I think, but they will probably go back to about 12 wins, I would imagine. And then, so, they'll kind of be in this mode where they're like, oh yeah, we're still good. We're gonna figure it out. But then I think once Kelsey's deal is up and Tyreek Hill, all these people, then they're not gonna have any money. They can't re-sign some certain guys. And forget the offensive line. The defense is already trash. I mean, it's just
we thought it would get better. It got worse after week 12.
Yeah, and it will continue to get worse because guys like what's his name, the 32.
Tyrann Mathieu not going to come back after a while. Yep.
Right. And whatever. So, anyways, and so they're gonna be in a situation around 3-4 years from now where they. I mean, I don't think that they'll suck, but they'll just be like a kind of a 9-10 win team, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they draft really well and that magically works out well for them.
They don't have. I don't even think they have picks.
Well,
that well either.
Okay, well, there you go. So yeah. So then with either they're going to ask him to restructure his deal, and he'll say,
which I don't see going over well.
No,
that ain't going to go over well with his agents.
No. And so maybe optimistically thinking they restructure his deal and they are able to bring in more guys, or more realistically, he says, no, forget that. I want to keep winning. So bye. I don't know. It's interesting, but yeah, I know I don't, because of all that, I don't see him winning a bunch more Super Bowls because, as we saw last night, he kind of needs help. Maybe not a ton, but he does. And I just feel like with the direction his team is heading, that's because of his deal and whatnot and salary cap, that's probably not going to happen. And therefore, he's not going to win, 6 rings or whatever, or even half that. And so as a result, since that's the guideline we have for the GOAT conversation, no one's ever going to consider him to be, like on Brady's level. So, yeah.
So hang on, I'm looking. Oh yeah, so the option is 2022. Okay. Moving on to the future of the Bucs side. I guess the major question here is, do you think they're going to bring everybody back? Do you think they're going to bring Shaq Barrett back, Gronk back? Chris Godwin is up for a deal in the offseason.
I think they'll bring back Barrett. I think they'll bring back Godwin. I don't think Antonio Brown will be back.
I know they want Fournette back. I don't think.
I mean, yeah, they'll probably bring Fournette. I don't think Gronk has any reason to come back.
He's going to come back though.
I don't know. But the thing is, money. This team. There's no fudging way this team has all the money, the cap space.
Do you know how much? How much cap they had this year?
How much did they?
$150 million.
Well, that's going to be a lot smaller.
Well, they had 150. Now the cap is at 180 this year, coming up to this offseason. So they're at
Mike Evans said that he would restructure his deal too.
Interesting.
Keep guys, not that means everything, but.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe they keep guys, but like, you got to remember, this team was not great. Like in the regular season.
No, they were not.
They got
Godwin probably leaves.
I mean, some of these, yeah. Like, why would Godwin stay after what happened in the Super Bowl?
Especially if AB stays. I think Godwin definitely.
Yeah,
leaves.
like Godwin. If I'm Godwin, I'm sitting there going, "Man, I just got disrespected in the Super Bowl. I got one. I got one pass." Like,
I mean, you won the chip at the end of the day.
But at the end of the day, like, you've been around for how long with this team?
It's 4 years now. UFA.
4 years.
You've been loyal.
You've been
to
loyal,
them
exactly.
through their ups and downs, and then Brady comes in and he throws
Just uses his guys. Just
gives the
uses
glory,
Gronk,
yeah.
and he uses
to the
a
guy he snuck in
dumbass.
there this
He,
year.
he uses a dumbass and a supposed racist.
Oh my
Rapist.
God.
Rapist, yeah.
I mean, it is factual. Alleged stuff, but
Alleged, yeah.
yeah. But I will say with Godwin, like it was an up and down year. Same with Mike Evans. A lot of that's just due to the amount of talent they had. The problem with Godwin is I wonder how much money he's going to demand.
A lot. Godwin's good.
He is. He's a top 10 receiver,
I mean,
top 5 maybe.
Here's the thing. Like, Godwin is someone who legitimately can go out and get big money from some of these teams.
Massive money.
Think about it. Godwin could go to the Jaguars. He could go to the Colts. He could go to the Chargers.
Miami's got money.
He could go to Miami. Think about Godwin with someone like Joe Burrow, or with someone like I don't know, Tua, or any of these up and coming young guys. Like, these guys are players that they have to lock down if they have to make the decision. Do we want them? That's why I believe they're going to say, hey, AB, hit the road. And
I think they should let him go because honestly, I feel like even though his contract wasn't amazing, I don't think AB is really needed for next year. I just don't.
I also think they're going to have to let him go because I think he's going to get locked up.
I'll say this. I think he's going to get suspended again. And I think it's going to be really bad.
It should be for good this time.
It should be. I think he'll get suspended another year. We'll see what happens with everything. But
I was surprised he was even reinstated, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I get that. So Shaq Barrett as well at 29. He was franchise tagged this year at 15.8. They have to pay him too.
Yeah,
he's going to demand
So I don't know. Yeah, I didn't know he was franchise tagged. So I don't know if he'll stick around.
Yeah. And again, Bruce Arians said our number one priority is to bring our guys back.
Yeah, but everybody says that.
Right. Our number one priority is to bring our guys back. I don't know how many people are going to take pay cuts. I don't know. All I know is that as we talk about with Godwin and even with Barrett, these are two key pieces to their championship run, and it's going to be tough.
I mean, you remember with the Seahawks, they said the same thing after we lost. And that did not go well.
Bring your guys back, yeah. I mean, every team says that. Even the Ravens said that too. In 2012. So it's a reality for these two. It's a reality for teams that make the Super Bowl and teams that win it. You put so much cap money into your guys, and then they kind of leave, right? So it's a difficult situation. So we'll see what happens here in the offseason. Can I also say a moment in the Super Bowl that I wanted to talk about? Antoine Winfield with the deuces. That was funny. That was honestly so funny. It was great. That was great. All right, so let's go to best moments of 2020 NFL season. What are your guys' best moments of the year? Best moments, most interesting moments. What do you guys have for sort of your list? What you guys
mine would be
the whole 2020 season. So not only you can go back to the draft all the way through the whole 2020 league year.
Can I do two?
Yeah, do as many as you can.
Okay,
I just want to
two I have right now off the top. My number one is DK chasing down Budda Baker because I've never seen a wide receiver just go field end zone to end zone and take down a DB. It was insane.
It was stupid. Yeah.
And also two, my second favorite moment that I can think of right now is watching all those tight ends get taken at the end of the draft, first round of the draft, and just sitting there with you and being like, "What is with all these tight ends?"
It's a classic memory. Shane, what are some of your favorite moments of the 2020 league year?
My favorite moments, something that comes to my mind is wild card weekend, Buffalo and Cleveland finally, after so many years, getting playoff wins. Their fans were so loyal for so long, and they finally got it done, and it's just cool to see that. Because me, I love a good underdog. um, Something else, this isn't really a moment, but it's more a story. And it was everything about the Washington football team, which is just really cool. Like everything about it. First, you have. I mean, you can make a movie about this. Like first, you have the name change, which seemed which. So the season before, they're one of the worst teams, the second worst team at that, and so going into the season, I think, oh, this team is going to be such a joke, and then the first thing we hear about them the whole offseason is, oh, they're changing their name now. They're going to be the Washington football team. I'm like, what? What a bunch of idiots. Okay.
They're keeping that, right?
They are?
They're
Really?
keeping it, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
From everything that I'm hearing, it looks like they're going to keep it.
Well, anyways.
That's amazing.
It wasn't that bad. I got used to it after a while.
No, I mean, like, I'm glad that they changed it from what it was, obviously. I just was expecting them to actually have a name and not just, But anyways, that's beside the point. So then that just made me laugh and go, oh my God, this team is just such a joke. But then they got a coach who has cancer. He beats his cancer partway
Ring that bell.
through the year. Yep. Then, of course, you have Alex Smith, who had a near-death injury and somehow at age 37, is that how old he is? Comes back and plays after 2 years. Team goes 4-1 with him as a starter. They get the defensive rookie of the year, and they get to the playoffs without their 4-1 starter, but they get this random fourth string guy who I'd never even heard of.
You never heard of Tyler Heineke before then?
No, I had never heard of him.
He
was
like,
like,
he
who the hell
played
is this
he
guy?
played when oh my God, who's that guy? Allen for the Panthers, right? When Ron Rivera was there. He got hurt and Heineke came in for like a quarter and was like, okay. So he's a Ron Rivera disciple, basically.
Well, that's the thing. Like, so then this guy goes in, and I don't know who this guy is, but then
I believe I'm correct with that. Okay, go ahead, Stain.
like
Sorry.
I've never heard of. I know you're probably right. Then this guy goes in, does great, almost beats Tampa, the Super Bowl champions, and it's not exactly the fantastic ending they had hoped for, but still, it's like, considering everything that happened with them, everything they overcame, it was pretty amazing to see just where they did end up getting.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they went 7-9,
Yeah,
it's dumb, I know, but they still made the playoffs. They were still in it, so
the NFC least segments were some of our best segments of the post shows this year.
that's right.
They were so good.
The NFC week.
All right, so I have a few. I kind of ran through a few in my head, some pictures and things. I don't have them up, but I'll go through a few. Obviously, the Mahomes contract, Brady going to Tampa was a shock. Shane, you remember we had a whole show talking about where will Brady go. And I don't even remember because we went through every team. I got to look back and see what we said with Tampa. I literally forgot what we said with Tampa.
I'm pretty sure with Tampa we said
maybe.
like, well, maybe because
Winston sucks and he throws 30 picks.
Well, yeah, we don't know about Jameis, but but then again, he's not going to leave New England, so
Yeah, that was kind of that whole show. It was pretty crazy.
Then, yeah.
That was one of the most creative things. But he goes there, and I'm like, okay, it makes a lot of sense, but it was still surprising because I know you said the Chargers or the Colts or stuff like that. So him going there, Raiders,
Niners.
maybe the Niners. That was up there. And then, of course, the Mahomes deal, richest deal in the NFL. Again, I hope no quarterback goes over that, but who knows what the cap will be.
Dak Prescott signs $80 million a year.
Dak. We could get to that today, I think. But let's see. So that, and then can I propose that we keep the virtual draft?
I kind of liked it, actually.
Brandon, are you with me? Do you want to keep it?
It's not like we're doing an in-person draft this year.
No, but would you keep it after COVID's done? Because I feel like I would.
I mean, maybe, but at the same time, I feel like it would work as well if we did something in person where we had a TV set up. I don't know. We can talk about it.
Yeah. So the virtual draft was cool just because they're with their families and all that stuff. Two literally iconic images from that draft are Bill Belichick with his dog making the pick.
Dude, the dog transforming into Belichick was amazing. Or Belichick turning into his dog. The commentators being like,
the dog has made the
bark.
pick.
Exactly. He's woofed his way into the pick. I was like, what is this?
That was classic. I know that Steve Harvey made jokes about the Washington football team in the NFL Honors Show, as well as Cliff Kingsbury's house. Dang, what a house, man. Yeah. The guy got a fire. That was awesome. I love Cliff. He's just awesome. That was great. Let's see. Regular season. The COVID stuff aside, it wasn't perfect. The infection rate was 0.08. Obviously, it wasn't perfect. There were a lot of issues there. Still give the medical team there at the NFL, Dr. David still a lot of credit for it. But I have to say, I hated it. I don't want him to bring it back, but I think something to say is those Tuesday night games, the Wednesday afternoon because of the Rockefeller lighting was hilarious. But watching games on Tuesday or Wednesday on national TV was pretty cool. It was pretty fun to watch
every day. It was great.
It was really weird, really exhausting, but it was pretty good. Never let it happen again, please. I don't need it again, but it was a cool thing. I was just watching Kendall Hilton, who played as a quarterback, a practice squad receiver playing as a quarterback due to COVID issues. Not a great game by him, but still props for him this year for that performance, even though it was terrible. A couple of iconic images, of course, the DK play. Tua, his first start, or he came in as a backup, came into the game. There's an amazing picture of him just sitting on the field afterwards. The realization that you made it to the NFL, regardless of what we say about Tua, and we have had some issues with how he's playing. The reality is, making it to the NFL is an accomplishment. That stuff is very hard, and to see Tua on the field after just reminiscing, dang it, I made it. There's so many milestones for a player, making the 53-man roster, getting that first paycheck, but to play in your first game as a starter or even to come in as a backup, it's a real accomplishment, and to see him relish in that was really beautiful. I love that. Yeah. And then, of course, the play of the year with the Cardinals, that crazy play where 3 defenders are on Hopkins and he makes the catch.
The Hail Murray.
The Hail Murray. Craziest plays ever. The watermelon squib kick. Sorry, Falcons fans. The watermelon squib kick by the Cowboys to win that game in the season. The playoffs were fun. The playoffs had this really weird energy this year because fans were in the crowd and everything else. Fans were in the stands pretty much everywhere, pretty much. But the playoffs had a really different feel this year with COVID and everything, and it was just a different playoffs, and I loved it, especially with Super Wildcard Weekend and everything. And to finish off with not a great Super Bowl like we hoped, but overall super interesting. So it's a long list, but that's sort of the things I'll remember Is that pretty good? You guys
Yeah.
think?
I think that pretty much covers it. I also did like I liked seeing Herbert's first start.
Right.
When he
Against Mahomes. Classic game.
Yeah, long-time division rivals right there. Or at least we're assuming. Um, um, yeah, no, that surprised me because I just remember I was sitting there watching the game and then all of a sudden I was like looking at my phone for a fantasy update and they're like, and Justin Herbert is going into the game. I was like, oh, what? And then I just like could not stop watching it. I was like, oh, I want to see how this goes, Anyways, um, yeah, and then is there anything else?
I would say overall rookie performances. Brandon, I think you can speak to this not only for the quarterbacks, but as well the receivers. Justin Jefferson, second in rookie of the year voting. Um, guys like James Robinson as well, right? Like the rookie performances this year in a stat class. We're getting another stat
Clyde
class this year. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That rookie
Justin
class
Jefferson.
this year, like we got a wave of talent that we're pretty excited about, right, Brandon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and I think another thing too that I guess two things that were more I guess like somber or sad about this year, but they have kind of stuck with me is the image of Stephon Diggs after the AFC Championship when there's like a picture.
You know what? I'm
of
gonna
his
find
back,
this image right now because it's actually a really powerful image.
and he's looking at the Chiefs celebration. That that picture like gave me chills the first time I saw it. It was just yeah. Anyways, and then another thing too that I always remember, or I always will remember about this year, was Dak Prescott's injury. Because, yeah, the injury was bad, but the thing about it that I will remember is what happened as he was being carted off the field. Everybody on both sides, both teams, was there for him, patted him on the shoulder, praying for him, whatever. And everybody in AT&T Stadium was on their feet, cheering, saying, "We love you, Dak," and you could see people like mouthing that, and that just made me feel really good to see that because this has just been 2020 was such a hard year for everybody, especially in America, just with all the craziness and tension that there was in division, and so they say that during time of crisis you need something tragic to kind of bring people together, and that almost kind of happened there, which again, it's unfortunate that happened to Dak, especially since he was having such a great year. But just seeing how everybody responded to it, it was kind of neat. Just yeah. But anyways,
here's the Diggs image. The fuller picture is a bit better. This actually brings me to another point too. The photography this year was probably the best it's ever been.
Yeah.
From the AP, from NFL Films. Some of these images this year were remarkable. So props to those guys. And yeah, I think you're right with the Dak thing. For sure. It was a unifying moment for everybody. And we'll see what happens with this contract situation and everything else. But yeah, I mean, it was a crazy thing. And you could see how loved he was by the Cowboys and how respected he is around the league. What, Shane, with this image, what sort of stood out to you immediately with this image? Like, Diggs here on the right side. Like, what was it for you with this image as a whole?
Everybody and their mother in Kansas City was very happy in this moment. The whole team was over there. It's great. They're living it up. And then there's this guy in uniform from the other team who's standing there alone. And he is undoubtedly the saddest person in that field.
Yeah.
And the fact that everybody else had gone to the locker room and done their thing, but he stayed out there and watched it. And I don't know why he did. I don't know if it was like a sign of respect or if
He also said it was sort of motivation on Twitter afterwards. He's like watching it, being like, I'll be back kind of thing.
okay, that makes sense. But it just was, there were a lot of emotions that just came out of that picture, I guess, But yeah.
To finish this off, Brandon, I'll finish off with you. I think you had a new favorite team this year as well in the Miami Dolphins. What did you love about them and their rise this year?
They were just fun to watch. Like, it's not often that I find a team that I like to watch other than the Seahawks, but they were a fun team to watch. They were easy to root for. They had an amazing defense. And, like, they're a team that I think are only just on the rise. Now, I might be wrong, but I'm hoping that they make the right moves and hopefully down the line we're seeing them in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think we'll see what happens with Tua there. Maybe Watson, but yeah, that team was super fun. Let's go on to sort of our expectations. Of course, we're just about finished with, or pretty much finished actually, considering East Coast time, with day one of the NFL offseason. The big news of the weekend, Carson Wentz. Rumors are flying everywhere. The latest and most official rumor that we heard this weekend was that Carson Wentz will be going to the Bears for Nick Foles, Tariq Cohen, and a first-round pick. Shane, you were excited to see Foles back in Philly if that deal becomes official here in the next week. It seems like he'll be traded by the end of the week.
Oh man, this is interesting. Okay. This was just me speculating. I didn't know there was actual merit to this. Okay, so
this is your first time hearing this, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the latest rumor. Official rumor is Tariq Cohen is the most surprising thing for me. Not as much Foles, but yeah. Cohen, Foles, and a first for Wentz.
For starters, I think that's a lot for Wentz. I'll just be honest. I wouldn't give up that much, but whatever.
They want a Matthew Stafford level package for Carson Wentz.
Okay. Interesting.
And we need to get to the Stafford trade as well. We'll get there after this.
Yes. This makes me wonder quite a few things. First of all, does that mean that Foles is the starter in Philly?
No. They're committed to Hurts. That's what it means.
Okay. Because it just makes me wonder, since...
Well, Peterson is out, so there's, so Foles there and with a new head coach, I don't think it's the same thing,
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, I don't... It became kind of clear that they wanted Foles. The team did. And so...
Yeah, in Philly.
Now that makes me think... Yeah, so now that makes me think, oh, well, okay, they're going to get, they would want him to start again. But like you said, new coach, it's not necessarily the case. So now it makes me wonder what kind of role he does serve. I guess just
kind of cap considerations.
Yeah. And it makes me think now that they just shouldn't, in hindsight, considering how this whole Wentz thing went down, they were probably just better off keeping Foles at the end of the day. I mean, now that they're just trading him and going back to square one with Foles himself. So, I don't know. It's weird. Tariq Cohen is an interesting ad, though. To say one thing. But yeah, I mean, now that also makes me wonder. I mean, I assume Wentz will be the starter in Chicago.
It would be if that goes through. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah. That's. Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, because in Trubisky, we don't know what's going to happen with him. But
He didn't get his option accepted.
uh,
So I think he has one more year, but
so free agency.
I don't think it's this year, but I think it's next. I think it's 2022 free agency.
Yeah. By the way, I just got this report that there's he says, I'm hearing Russell Wilson's camp has grown increasingly frustrated by the Seahawks' inability
Yep.
to protect the 8-time Pro Bowler.
This is from CBS
you know what?
Sports.
Like, look, all I have to say about that right now is just shut the hell up, Russell. Like, you've dealt with this for how long? Just maybe don't run into traffic so much. Like, half the time I feel like he's like keeping the ball for too long and just running into traffic. Fucking throw the ball quicker, dumbass.
So CBS Sports reported that he was sacked 394 times in 9 seasons. There are 2 reasons why he's upset. This is not just a inability to protect him thing. Ian Rappaport reported on Saturday that teams called the Seahawks.
He's not going to get traded.
He's not going to get traded.
I don't think he wants to be traded, honestly.
No, I don't think he wants to either. I don't think he wants to get traded. But the fact that report came out, the fact that got leaked, the fact that it might have not, I don't think it was the Seahawks. I think it was another team. The fact that got leaked on top of this, I'm sure it has something to do with it.
And I'm sure
he's frustrated with the offensive coordinator.
You know what I think he's doing? I think he's playing a game. He's trying to strong arm them into getting him offensive line help.
Well, it's an offensive lineman is a process.
Yeah.
Brandon, your thoughts on the Carson Wentz to Chicago rumor?
I mean, they're both just such non-starter quarterbacks that I don't really care. Like, it's such an uninspiring situation. Like, it'd be one thing if it was like, oh, Carson Wentz is going to Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers. Like, then I'd be like spitting out coffee, like being like spit take. Like, what?
I think you'd have to be on drugs to make that trade happen. But
yeah, maybe if they had Bill O'Brien as their GM.
Bill O'Brien is back with New England, by the way.
Really?
I believe so, yeah.
Actually, no.
He's going back to Alabama. He was going back to Alabama.
Oh my god.
He's going back to Alabama. Yeah, that's right.
Doing what?
He's basically doing like maintenance stuff.
He's the offensive coordinator, isn't he?
Oh my god.
I don't know.
Let me look it up.
Wait, no, not Alabama. Not with Alabama. Steve Sarkisian's the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, so he's just like...
No, he went to...
he went to...
Steve Sarkisian moved to Texas.
Yeah, Texas Tech. Or Texas and took the head coaching job.
Yeah, Alabama hires Bill O'Brien as offensive coordinator 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
Oh my god.
That makes sense. So with this trade, like I think you're right, Brandon. It's pretty uninspiring. We don't know what Wentz is going to do under a new system. Under Matt Nagy, again, didn't really develop Trubisky much. I don't know. All Wentz needs to do is get not to 2017 MVP form, but get closer to that. Maybe he just needs to get back to a starter level first. Let's start there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, is Green Bay I'd rather him go to Indianapolis. If I was him, get me to Indy. I think if you're just looking from a football perspective. But
if I'm a free agent quarterback, that's my top destination, Indy.
That's your top destination if you're a free agent quarterback right now. Or a quarterback looking to be traded.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Easily.
Over New Orleans?
No,
If
because they have
Breeze retires,
cap issues.
that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think Indy for sure.
Honestly, I think you're probably right. Why is Indy such a top priority for you if you're a free agent QB?
Top 3 offensive line, top 3 defense. They got 2 young. Is Phil? Well, Jonathan Taylor. He's good.
And you have Naeem Hines and all those guys.
Yeah.
But Ty might not come back, so you're losing your top receiver.
Yeah.
But you have Michael Pittman, so.
Right, and maybe they draft a receiver. I mean, I would assume that.
Ty said today that they need to be on the same page. So he could come back, he might not.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
So, yeah, they just need a quarterback. Really, I mean, the way I see it. So, yeah, I mean, better receiver help would be nice. Yeah, I mean, after that, I mean, I would say Miami, but they seem pretty set on Tua. San Francisco, who knows what the hell's happening there?
Jets. Salah.
No. Second, honestly, second.
It has to be New Orleans. New England.
Hear me out on this. If they just get, they're gonna have They had a lot of guys who opted out because of COVID. They're gonna get them back.
It looks like they'll come back. Yeah.
Yeah, this defense is probably gonna be really good again. You got Bill Belichick, a fantastic coach, and hopefully, I would hope that they would draft a receiver, right? Or even a free agent. If they just get a good receiver.
Godwin?
Hey. And, they're missing all the defensive guys. Plus, they didn't have plus, they had no receivers basically this year.
Mm-hmm.
And a quarterback who can't throw the ball anymore. Yet they still went 7-9 and were competitive in most games they played. I don't know. I think it's assuming that they can get a receiver or two, even just one.
N'Keal Harry ain't enough.
No.
And Jacoby Myers ain't enough.
No. They can just get one good guy, and then I think that's honestly a pretty desirable place to go. But
Brandon, what's your top 2 QB destinations if you're a free agent? Where do you want to go?
And then third, New Orleans.
Yeah.
Probably the Colts 1. The Dolphins 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like New Orleans and then probably Indy. Miami would be in there, but I think with New Orleans, you heard Sean Payton. He was talking this week in virtual Radio Row, basically, because pretty much everyone's available for conversations with sponsorships and stuff, as Radio Row normally goes. I love Radio Row, by the way. So it's still cool that they had some semblance of it this year. Sean Payton on Virtual Radio Row this week said, I love Taysom Hill, and it's because if Taysom Hill is available for trade, he said this with the Ringer with Kevin Clark on Slow News Day, that if we said Taysom Hill's on the trade block, all 31 teams would go after him, which I think is accurate.
Yeah, because he's so versatile.
And then they also said that they like Jameis because of his leadership skills and whatsoever. I really think they need to get someone else in that building. I think they're being a little bit foolish saying that Winston's their guy or Hill. Maybe they trade up in the draft somehow. I don't think they're set. This is a team that still should be in win now mode for how many good players they have. And maybe that win now mode is getting a rookie quarterback. Maybe it's getting somebody in free agency. Maybe it's trading for somebody. Stafford would have been a nice fit there, speaking of which. But they're in a win now mode. And if you say Winston or Hill, you're saying we're going to take that away. Brandon, do you agree with that?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think either of those quarterbacks are all that great, but maybe it's all they have to work with.
Shane, your feeling on it? Are you on my side here where I just don't trust it?
Yeah, no, I don't see any of them being like the future of the team. And I mean, even if Breeze does want to come back, which it does not seem likely at all, I don't know how good he is anymore, just based off what we saw this year. So, yeah, I don't know what you do. I mean, at this point, I'd probably try and trade for somebody. I don't know who, but you know, considering their cap issues, this isn't going to be a team that is going to win in a few years. It's like, if they're going to win, they got to do it now. Especially when you got Tampa in that division, who we just saw is a force to be reckoned with.
And we're not forgetting a growing Carolina team and an Atlanta team with a pretty good new head coach that might find their way back to some level of semblance.
Some
maybe
degree.
Wins.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to do that with Jameis or Taysom. Maybe go for Deshaun. I don't know.
It'll be a lot of value.
Yeah, we will. Who knows what they're going to do, but we'll see. We will see. Long off season, so we'll have time to figure it out, I guess.
So, we have a new quarterback in the NFC West. That's definitely better than Jared Goff, and that is Matthew Stafford. Stafford and Goff basically got swapped. The Rams literally don't have picks for the next 20 years. It feels like. Brandon, your thoughts on the Goff and Stafford trade, starting with Stafford on the Rams now.
Well, I'll just say that everybody is acting like the Rams just became like, ooh, this big bad team with Stafford, and I just gotta say no.
Why not?
Because Stafford isn't that good, man. He's like,
I think he's the most underrated quarterback in the history of the NFL.
I don't know history of the NFL, but I think of this generation.
Right now.
I just feel like, yes, he's he's talented, right? And like, maybe he was on a bad Lions team, but you got to look at him and realize that he had pieces with the Lions. If a quarterback who was better than him would have been able to do something with the pieces he had. He had pretty good wide receivers.
Just the Hall of Famer and Megatron. That was basically it.
He had Megatron, and then down the line, he's had multiple wide receivers over time that he could work with. That was good. Hell, this year alone, he had enough pieces that any decent quarterback. Okay. My point is, anyway, you take away from that, right? He is coming.
And one Hall of Famer. That was it.
He's coming into a division that, in my opinion, is going to rock his socks on defense.
That's true. With these lines,
he's going to get destroyed. He is not athletic. He's not maneuverable. He's not movable. He doesn't run. He can't make quick escapes like Jared Goff used to, like Russell can, like X, Y, and Z. And these defenses are going to eat him for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I don't think I think this was the worst division he could have come into, to be honest.
Shane, you agree with that?
I mean, I agree that this probably wasn't the ideal division for him to come into. However, when you consider the fact that this guy has, I mean, you said he has had pieces, but I disagree personally. I mean, he had Calvin Johnson, but and then this year, I mean, Kenny
Holiday was hurt the whole year. This year.
Yeah. Still, despite all that, he's managed to get, finished like top 10 in passing stats, which, despite his bad weapons and bad offensive scheme and terrible coaching, which, if you ask me, is pretty impressive. So now you put him in a team with guys like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, who are really good receivers, in a fantastic offensive scheme, maybe the best in the NFL with Sean McVay. Honestly, looking at the Rams defense too, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, who have both been just stellar players. I think the Rams win 12 games next year.
No.
Why do you think
won? So? They won 10 this year.
They got pretty fucking lucky this year, in my opinion.
How? I mean, even
they got lucky winning. I mean, it's the Rams. Look, they don't strike me as that amazing of a team. Like they have like their defense is not going to be as good as it was.
No, I'm not saying they're going to finish top 5, but they're still going to finish top 10.
The whole reason they were, I think they're going to fall out of the top 10. I think they're going to be like top 15
on defense.
Yes, like they're going to lose players, right, in the offseason. They have on offense. Maybe like they'll get better on offense because yes, Stafford is better than Goff. But like I just don't feel like Goff is like I don't think switching Goff for Stafford is going to upgrade the offense all that much. Like that change. I think the biggest factor will be can they repeat the success they had with their running squadron.
Well, they don't have a squadron now. It's going to be Cam Akers. That's it.
Well, okay, fine. But here's the real question then. Can Cam Akers handle running the ball over and over and over and over again?
He's not going to have to because Stafford's going to actually throw the ball.
Trust me, they're going to use him a lot more than people expect him to. Because it's going to be the same sort of. I feel like it's going to end up coming into the same situation as when they had what's his face
when they had Gurley.
I think they're going to run it and then throw it and then run it and then throw it and then run it and throw it. It's like it's. I don't know. I don't see the Rams being. Maybe I'll be wrong, but
here's the thing. I will say this: the issue. The reason I ultimately think that they get better is because the issue that we, and when I say we, I mean myself and many others.
I think we all said the same thing about Goff for a while.
The issue I have with the Rams is that Goff just was not reliable or consistent. So you get rid of that, and now you have a guy who is much more talented at the position and who Sean McVay clearly believes in much more.
They were hanging in Cabo when the trade happened, apparently.
Yeah. I just think that'll let things connect more, And now, and another thing that I was talking about earlier in the season is that they needed a Gurley, which I feel like they have in Cam Akers. Not that he's as good as Gurley was at that time, but he's the closest thing they've had to a consistent, reliable guy, So, and maybe he will get banged up, but I assume they will still have their committee, which the running back committee is still pretty good. So,
probably second best in the league last year as a whole.
Yeah,
over the Browns.
So,
or under the Browns, I guess I should say.
I mean,
whatever.
Right. So, I think at the very least they win at least one more. I definitely don't see them getting worse though. But I don't know.
Is
Maybe
is
I'm
there
just hyping it up too much.
is there we'll have to see how the whole team shakes out, the whole 53.
Yeah.
Of course. But
We'll have to have this conversation again in August,
right. But there is some validity, although be it small at this point, although I might be able to hype it up a bit more. They're a contender for the Super Bowl. If you look at that roster, they are a contender for the Super Bowl regardless, and that division's going to get better.
Yeah.
They are with Stafford, which is nutty, but they are. And they've been trying to win now forever. So if they're going to do it, they're going to have to do it next year. And the NFC is going to get harder too. So that's why the validity might be a little bit smaller than I'm putting it. But at the same time, it is there. Fantasy prospects for Stafford. Is he a top 5 guy?
I wouldn't say top 5. I still think top 5 would be
the basic guys that we had this year. So maybe like top 7 for Stafford, maybe this year in fantasy, or in 2021, I should say.
Maybe. Yeah, I could see him being like 7 or 8, probably.
Brandon, your thoughts on Stafford's fantasy prospects?
You got to remember Dak too.
Yeah,
He'll be back healthy, so that'll kind of, yeah.
What do you think, Brandon, with his fantasy prospects next year?
I agree with Shane.
You agree with Shane on that? Yeah. The other side, is Goff and Dan Campbell going to tear off some kneecaps in Detroit?
I don't know how that's going to work.
Goff has been assured that he is the starter. Goff is the starter.
Yeah, I just feel like that's a situation where they brought Goff in to tank number 1 pick and get a quarterback and be like, bye-bye.
Yeah, I feel like Detroit's going to be the worst team in the NFL next year. I'll just be honest.
So no kneecap tearing?
No, I'm not kidding. I legitimately do. I think that coach, just based off what I've seen, I think he's a freaking psycho and an idiot.
Just because of those comments?
Yeah.
No, just his whole speech in general. It was just weird. I was like, what? Who hired this guy? Like, what was he, a waiter at Bubba Gump's or something? And they got him out to, I don't know why that in particular, but yeah.
Dan Campbell played for the Lions, right? And he was trying to say that
for him. But there's a difference between being a player in the NFL, where you should have that kind of mentality, and being a coach where you got to be a leader and be a little level-headed. Not be out there telling your 53 men, all right, go bite off their kneecaps, you cannibals. I'm
going to use that kneecap every time we talk about the Lions. I'm going to talk about the kneecaps, because that was literally one of the greatest press conferences I've ever seen. It was so good.
It's so cringy.
So I think did I talk about the presser on the show? Did we talk about the presser? I'm sure we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I talk about
So.
They're trying to do the identity of the city and stuff. Goff is going to be interesting there. They're going to have to rebuild him. They're going to have to give him some confidence. And it's going to be on Dan Campbell to do that. And I don't know how that's going to work. But the reality is Goff can't get traded again. Nobody's going to take that contract. So guess who's going to be the starter the next couple of years? It's going to be Goff.
Mm-hmm.
So they got to figure that out. At least for the short time, at least for 2 or 3 more years, this is your franchise quarterback. No one's going to want that contract. That's the reality of the situation. So you got to figure it out. And I don't know how, because McVay didn't give him that much control with that offense.
Yeah. It's just a whole lot of yikes.
Basically with the Lions, the answer is kneecaps and yikes. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Is there any other? Well, Dak's contract. Speaking with Dak really quick. There is talk that some people have talked about this. Cowboys players and stuff like this, but I also kind of agree. I feel like it's time for the Cowboys to move on from Dak Prescott. I don't think he should get re-signed.
Well, he will be resigned though. Like
He will be, but should he be? Should he legitimately? Should he be?
No.
Brandon, why do you say no? Because that's what I'm saying.
I'm 50-50. I don't know.
Because he's not worth the money.
He's not worth $35-40 million.
No.
That's the thing. Like I think he's good, but not that good.
Yeah.
Not 40 million good. 30 million.
He was at about 30
If
million
he
this
gets
year
the-
with the franchise tag.
If you get if you can get a defense, maybe.
They're pretty good defense.
Maybe.
Already, but yeah.
But 40?
Yikes.
No.
Before we go, let's do some Major League Baseball before we head out.
Boy.
And actually, I did want to do one NBA topic. So baseball announced that they are actually going to be tampering with the ball. Is that the best way I can put this? I think that is the best way I can put it. Basically, they are legitimately going to make changes to the baseball. So this is according to Bleacher. I have this off Bleacher Report, but this is Ken Rosenthal and Ito Sarnes of The Athletic. The ball construction will be changed slightly. All parts of MLB's attempt to reduce a wild recent year-to-year swing in home run rates league-wide. Home run rates. The changes to the ball will make it less bouncy. One analyst estimates that the changes will reduce the home run rate by 5%. It will be like adding 5 feet of outfield wall to every wall in the big leagues. The analyst said.
I kind of liked all the home runs though.
Yeah, what's wrong with it?
It makes it more fun.
So pitchers have such a giant advantage in baseball now. It's like, oh yeah, let's just do another thing to screw over hitters even more. Great, good job, baseball.
There's a couple things that is tone deaf with this that kind of frustrate me. One is home runs make this game cool. That's just the reality. We love the home run ball. And part of this is like the worries about steroids. It's there. It's going to be part of baseball's history forever. It's literally an era. Well, let's admit.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, though.
Yeah, true. Yes, I agree with that. And the Hall of Fame is a whole nother thing with how stupid that's been with no one getting in this year. But they are worried about those kind of things where people are like, oh, steroids, this and that. And the home run ball. The reason why the home run is bigger is because analytics say don't go for the double, go for the home run. Don't go for the single, go for the home run. Also, there's more power in the league than ever just natural power because the sport has a natural progression of talent. But but part of this that's so tone deaf is how many times. Remember Justin Verlander, Shane, last year, All-Star game? He was like, they're tampering with the ball. This is them literally tampering with the baseball.
Yeah.
To make changes to the game. Do you see it's so tone deaf.
Right.
It is like so tone deaf. Everyone says you're tampering with the ball, and now you're actually admitting we are actually going to legally do this. We're going to make this decision.
Plus, it's like Brennan says, it's something that makes it fun. And, especially in this day and age when sports, at least in America, I don't know if this is the case internationally, but sports are becoming increasingly characterized by big plays.
Highlights.
We we all like to see the deep ball to Tyreek Hill in football, or the 3-point shots in basketball, and yada yada yada. So if that's what the appeal is, especially for younger audiences in a sport that already is struggling with younger audiences, baseball, this kind of seems like something dumb to do.
You know what I think it is?
hmm.
I think it's a bunch of pitchers probably got mad and bitched at the league. And we're like, oh, you're making it harder for us. And it's like,
It could be, honestly.
it's like,
This seems like a corporate decision. This seems like the commissioner's office saying we're actually going to legitimately tamper with the ball. It doesn't seem like a pitcher. It literally seems like the commissioner's office going, yeah, this home run rate reminds us of the steroid era. Let's slow this down, which is contrary to what is good with young audiences.
Yeah.
It does not seem to be like a pitcher thing at all, which is why I'm so confused.
It feels like something that Trevor Bauer would complain about.
We're all complaining about it. It's dumb.
I'm not complaining about it.
So are you okay with it?
I literally
are you okay
said,
with it?
dude, last year was one of the most entertaining years I've had watching baseball because people were slapping the ball out of the park left and right. And it's like, I go to baseball games and I love seeing home runs. I don't want to watch a double. I don't want to watch a single.
So
I want to see someone smash it out of the park and just be like, you hear the crack of the bat and you're like, oh yeah, that one's gone. Just like,
so we're gonna eliminate that by 5%.
yeah, which dude, I have been there. I have sat in the stands for the years where it was the complete opposite, where it was like a drought on home runs. It's boring.
So they're basically creating another drought by 5%. So what's the point of
which
this?
is gonna suck.
Yeah.
Because taking 5% away is a lot in baseball.
It's another reason
where
why I'm
small percentages really add up.
It's also going to make the game time longer. None of this makes sense.
Yeah, which is interesting because didn't the league say they wanted to make the game time shorter?
They basically said we think young audiences don't like the game because it's 3 hours and 2 minutes instead of 2 minutes 3 hours and 2 minutes over 2 hours and 58. 2 hours and 58
of that. Make a pitch clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or don't allow them to pull
I should
someone.
be the commissioner of the MLB.
See, one thing they did change for this year is you have to go through 3 batters before you can 3-batter minimum before you can take the guy out.
But that's more of like a continuity of the game thing with like, oh, if I have a lefty, I want a lefty pitcher.
No. It feels more like you're not just watching them go to the mound every 2 seconds.
Yeah, and like always go to commercial. Joe Buck, we're going to commercial again.
Yeah, it's like in the playoffs, it seems like they go to the mound like 3 times, like every 10 minutes.
I mean, it's true though. So true. Another thing with baseball, the rules for 2021 came out for COVID rules. So we're keeping the runner in extra innings on the second base. We're keeping the 7 innings, the 7-inning doubleheader. And we are getting rid of the universal DH, which I love the universal DH. So were there problems there? I was confused why they got rid of that.
Unless they just want pitchers to get hit.
Why do we need pitchers to hit, though?
Because they suck.
Well, I said, why do we need them to hit?
I know.
Well, that's my point. Like, I guess the league just wants to see pitchers get put in harm's way. Because, pitchers have, like, blown out their arms hitting.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I don't know.
You pitch enough, and then you swing a bat, and your arm just gives out. Imagine you pitching 90 pitches and then having to go up to bat.
I've done it.
I'm just gonna remind people that Felix Hernandez hit a grand slam once.
That's
Perfect.
right, he did.
Do you guys want to talk about the Hall of Fame stupidity? Do we need to go over that again? That was dumb. That was dumb. The Baseball Hall of Fame needs a complete revamp. What is this voting system? It's garbage. What? Wait. So you're telling me that the Pro Football Hall of Fame can have a bunch of people get in, but baseball can't have nobody for a class? Whatever. Stupid. That's why you guys want to discuss it. It's literally dumb. Finally, Brandon, the floor is yours. The Raptors have said that they are thinking about trading Kyle Lowry, at least some of the personnel, and then we'll get to the D Rose trade. What are your thoughts on that report?
I feel like trading Kyle Lowry is basically like saying we give up. Unless you're getting some magnificent, amazing pieces back that are gonna like feed energy into this team, you're basically taking away the heart and soul of the team. The last OG guy, the last true old style guy from the Raptors history, and just saying, here, go to another team.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how much value he has either.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't think anybody really is going to... I mean, someone would take him probably, but I don't think we'd get anything back.
Does any contender look even at the D Rose stuff that happened? Like, yeah, the contenders were interested, but how many of those contenders are going to be willing to pay Kyle Lowry's contract even?
I don't know.
Let's be honest about that. Derrick Rose, what was that? I'm literally confused, flabbergasted. I don't know what's the right word. Pistons, you were getting calls from the Lakers, the Bucs, and a bunch of other contenders. Yeah, you take the Knicks offer. Why did the Knicks need Derrick Rose anyway? You have Emmanuel Quickly, who's been pretty good. Obviously not great defensively, but he's been really fun to watch when he's on the court. He's been a nice fantasy guy when he actually gets minutes, which he doesn't get minutes. You have Elfrid Payton. Why does Derrick Rose make any sense? And the Pistons got Dennis Smith Jr., who I don't think has barely played, if at all, this year, and a second-round pick for Derrick Rose, who's been pretty solid, and there's actually been significant interest in him for 2 seasons. What are we doing?
We don't know.
Shane, you literally don't know? Like, what are your thoughts on this deal?
No, I have no clue. Yeah. Like, where... I don't know. And the weirdest thing about it is what they got in return.
Yeah.
With the deal. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, so it was a second-round pick and Dennis Smith Jr. That was it.
Yeah. Like, okay. Thanks, I guess. I don't know. It's weird, but yeah.
I look, I know that Thibodeau wanted him back. I get it. I wonder how that rotation's gonna look, but I guess I'm sure a lot of people can attest to this. Derrick Rose on a championship contender would be nice.
Yeah.
It would be nice. And he's not gonna get that opportunity.
Now that he's old.
Yeah, he's still good though. He's still pretty good. But
yeah, he's all right.
It's not like there wasn't more value out there. Pretty ridiculous.
Well.
So, 10 off that note, we go through a bunch of ridiculous topics. Or semi-ridiculous in these cases. All right, that's it for today. We'll be back next week and our last post show of 2020. So, good job by you guys.
Even though it's 2021.
Yeah, well, technically 2020 season. Imagine doing what, about 2021, I think? 21, 22, 20-ish shows every week all the way up to Super Bowl other than Pro Bowl week, which we didn't need a show for that. Although the virtual Pro Bowl was fire. I want
Snoop
that
Dogg.
Snoop Dogg, Keyshawn Johnson not knowing what the heck he's doing.
In the home.
It was actually a good virtual Pro Bowl. I hope they bring that back along with some new semblance of the real Pro Bowl. But yeah, 22 weeks of shows. So great work
Flag
by you
football
guys.
game on Nickelodeon.
Yes. Great job by you guys for sticking in that whole way for the whole season. We'll be back at it again next year, but we're back with our regular shows as we always do next week.
All right.
We will see you guys then.